Oh, it starts with
How can I adjust my discomfort with Mother's Day so I actually feel like I want to celebrate it and be celebrated?
Welcome to Mom Conversations on the Win-Win Women platform. Natasha and I, Reagan, are your hosts. And today we also have our special guest, McElroy, joining us from California.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Our goal with Conversations is to just help you enrich your motherhood experience, to give you tools and the resources you need to sometimes just get through the day, and help us all to keep calm and mom on.
The topic of today's Mom Conversation is Mother's Day, which might be uncomfortable. We're aware and sensitive to that. And that's why we invited Mo. She's developed a method to help us work through these complex feelings and hopefully come out on top.
I need that. I need that very much. For the first half hour, we will be hearing Mo's story and the services that she offers free on her website at askandtell.org. Then we will invite you to unmute and join the conversation where we can care, connect, and collaborate.
We love that there's this unique feature of the Win-Win Women platform where it's not just us talking, but you as our viewers get to interact. And we hope you will take advantage of that.
Yes. So how can I adjust so I can celebrate and enjoy being celebrated on Mother's Day?
Oh, we all want to know the answer to this, Natasha, for some reason. Well, for lots of reasons. The looming holiday where we moms are supposed to be celebrated on a pedestal, it just brings up this complexity of emotions that we would rather not have to wade through. As moms, we are sometimes just too aware of our struggles and shortcomings. Mm-hmm. So when our husband or our kids try to force us to acknowledge that there's another side of our existence, we avoid it.
Yeah.
Maybe because if we know that they are noticing the good things we do, we know they're also noticing the ways that we mess up,
the mistakes.
And we worry that they'll declare that we are not the hero that their Gotham needs. You know?
Oh my.
Well, so true. Everything you just said is so true. And especially like the relationship that I have with my mother, I don't want to celebrate her.
Right.
So I end up hating Mother's Day. I refuse to go to church. I don't want to listen to people at church say how great their mothers were. That's just, it feels icky to me. I don't want to be there. So I don't go to church on Sundays. And then I send my kids away on the day before Mother's Day so I can just be by myself.
They can go celebrate their grandmother.
They can go celebrate grandma. So I am so looking forward to hearing from you, Mo. Will you please take a minute to introduce yourself?
Yes, I will. This all sounds so difficult.
That's my middle name. No, I'm just kidding.
Crack the code here a little bit. So yes, I'm a mom. I have, that's my first resume. I always say is I'm a mom. So I have 3 gorgeous daughters, Sarah, Kim, and Bonnie. I have a picture I brought with me to show you.
Oh, I'm glad. Visual aid.
Those are my girls.
Visual aid.
Those are my girls. They are now 30, 33, and 35. That was the joy of my life. And I think it was my mission is to raise great kids. And fortunately, they're turning out in, various shades of therapeutic wellness, I say, but they're all good. And for my career, which I've done for 40 years, I'm in tourism. So I'm a tourism executive. I run associations and chambers, and I work for hotels and attractions. I work for SeaWorld and Hyatt and all these, big brands. But I stopped as soon as I had my first daughter. I took one look at her and I couldn't leave her. And so I stayed home for 13 years and got them all raised up until my youngest one was 9 years old. And then I went back to work, and they actually thought that was pretty cool. They didn't know that I knew how to do that. And I got a computer. So now they're gone, and but we're very close. And The work I do with Ask and Tell is just a project that I started with my kids, which we'll talk about. This last year, I also was really fortunate to help a friend who passed away to finish a school in Uganda for young girls to empower them. It's a vocational school. So we'll be finishing that project this summer, actually putting the desks and the chairs and everything in the school. So I'm all about moms and girls, and I'm super happy that you invited me and I got to meet you both. Thank you.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you. This is a real delight. We often do conversation just as co-hosts. We don't always have a special guest.
We get sick of each other. No, we don't.
Live from California. I'm over here. We mom too. Yeah.
All right. Well, you are such a bright personality. It's really fun. We are all ears. We do want to hear more, both about the Uganda project as well as this website that you've developed, askandtell.org. Let's have you start back at the initial incident that changed Mother's Day for you.
It really was an incident, and it was on Mother's Day. So it was, the girls were, I want to say they were 8, 10, 12, something around that age. And they would struggle at that time to figure out what to get me for Mother's Day. So it would often sound like, Mom, can you take us to Safeway so we can buy a Hallmark card? We don't have any money and we want to tell you you're a nice mom. And I was finally, I was like, no, I don't want a Hallmark card. I do not want to drive to Safeway right now. And I don't know what it was. It was I want to call it some divine inspiration that hit me. And I looked at them and I said, no, you know what I want? I want to know if anything I've been saying to you is you're hearing. Like, I talk to you all day long. Do you hear anything I'm saying? Because I feel sometimes like I'm talking to myself. So I went and got them each a piece of paper and a pencil. And I said, go into your rooms. And I want you each to write me a list of 10 things you've learned from me. And don't come out until you've done that. And I'm going to wait on the couch for you. So I waited on the couch. I can't remember how long. It felt like it was a long time. I didn't know what was going to happen. But they started to come out.
It's always nice, though, to get a little alone time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you had some time to decompress.
I myself to reflect on my Mother's Day, like what was going to happen. What am I doing? Anyway, one by one, they came out with these lists and they handed them to me. And I started to read them and I burst into tears. I was like, I can't believe it was everything from you taught me how to fold the sheet on the bed, to you taught me there's always time to be kind. You taught me self-respect, you taught me to always keep my steam high, which they didn't know self-esteem, they called it steam. So they have high steam. And there was 30 things I had taught these 3 girls, and some of them crossed over, but interestingly enough, with 3 kids, they were very unique lists too. They were each one I had touched in a different way. So in that moment, I realized that I could just let go. I had worked at this for quite some time, and their values were being shaped. And I also sort of looked at them and I said, oh, I think we're just in this together. We're in this together. It's not me trying to mom you. We're a team. We're in this together. So that's how it all happened. After that Mother's Day.
Isn't there is some of that back and forth. I mean, quite a bit actually of they, as moms, we are trying to teach them, but there's so much that we learn from them. So yes. Do you ever make the list the other direction? Do you ever write a list to your kids? Be like, let me tell you how much patience I learned.
I haven't done it in a list form, but my way of showing that is when I'm in a pickle or I need another set of ears or somebody to weigh in on something, they're the first people I call. And I say, I know you're my person and I know you can, walk me through this dilemma I'm in or give me your opinion. And I think asking a child what they think, no matter what age, like, what do you think? It just empowers them and it makes them feel like they're they matter, like their opinion matters. So,
And that you notice that they do think. Because
Yes.
sometimes
yes.
I will say to my child, what were you thinking? Oh, you know, so.
Yeah,
So
so-
that's great. Yeah, I like that. That's great. That's like a little nugget of advice you're passing along to us to help our children. And I guess essentially that is what you're doing with the ask and tell, is you're finding out what they think about
Yes.
everything, all their interactions with you. Do they
Mhm.
think that there's something worthwhile in that?
Yes.
And
Did they learn something? And this is what I turned this into, it was a practice for my family, which by the way, we still do all these years later. I still get my list from my kids, but every year it evolves. But parents were asking me, oh, what did you get for Mother's Day? What did you do for Mother's Day? What did your kids do for Mother's Day? There's so much pressure on it, you know? And and I said, well, you know, I asked, and then they told me and what they learned. And so they're like, you mean you just asked them? What if you got a bad list? I said, I was willing to get anything at this point. Communication, didn't care. And it turned out that I've never really gotten a bad thing. But I just started sharing with parents. And then one day I just decided to turn it into a practice. And I heard, you know, sometimes you get those inspirations. I heard it's called ask and tell. And I'm like, yeah, it's called ask and tell. And I just turned it into a practice, and that's why I'm here today. I'm super excited I'm actually coming out and sharing it with people in a more public way. So,
Yeah.
well, and I think it's interesting that you bring up the fear of something bad might end up on the list, like whether, you know, we worry, are they only taking in the negatives? Because obviously we are imperfect mortal beings, and there are imperfections in our efforts to mother these kids. I think, however, there's another side to that. If they did somehow manage to verbalize something negative that we've been doing, I don't know that would ruin my Mother's Day. I think that there could be a way that would like just give me a clearer view of what's going on in my relationship with that child.
Well, let's be clear. For a second, we'd be like, what? What did you just say to me? No. And then we'd start thinking back, oh, yep, they're right.
Thank you for being honest.
Thank
At least
you.
I taught you honesty, if nothing else. But I also think that there are situations, Natasha's been really open as we've had these shows about the strain of the relationship with her mom, who is narcissistic.
She's a narcissist.
And that has been obviously very strange. But as an outsider, I can see that has taught Natasha so much about life. And that could be on her list. If she were to try to list of what she's learned from her mom, it could be like,
I made a list one time.
Yeah.
It was years ago. It was not a nice list, but it was a list. And it was little things like, for example, I got kicked out of my house when I was 17. And that taught me how to pay my own bills, balance a checkbook, figure out the public transportation system. It taught me how to be far more independent than I would have had I stayed.
Yeah.
And, you know, just think she taught me how to stand up for my own kids because she never did that for me. I 100% will do that for my children. And so you're right, that negative experience, those negative items, they did teach me a lot. And I feel like I am a much stronger person than she is. I'm a much happier person than she is. And I'm a lot better mom than she is. So it was that experience that taught me how to be the mom that my kids need.
Yeah, that's great.
I think we do get I kind of feel like we choose our parents, and somehow or another. And I had a challenging mom myself. Yeah, I had a challenging mom. It's interesting because she wasn't the greatest mom, on the spot, but boy, was she a great grandmother. And I figured out that she got a second chance, and she was an amazing Nana to my kids. And I got to see her in a whole new light through that. And it was very healing for me and very wonderful. But yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. I went to my first school assembly. I had 300 third graders or something, this big gymnasium. And I was asking them, they were all sitting, they loved the microphone. I passed the microphone around. I said, what did you learn from your mom? And, at first they were like, my mom taught me to fish. My mom taught me to tie my shoes. And then I told them to close their eyes and go a little deeper. And I just like a moment of meditation, just go a little deeper and think about something you might have taught, your mom might have taught you. And one of the kids said, my mom taught me that to not bug my dad when he comes home because he's angry and he yells when he first arrives at the house.
Yeah. What?
I was like, that kids just tell the truth, and they just, and sometimes it stings a little bit. Sometimes they just call it like it is. And it's very refreshing. And I think if they do put something like kind of, off the beaten path on their list, it's something you can laugh about and talk about together and say, yeah, that happened. Sometimes it's like that in our family. Yeah.
I am interested in how you are taking this initiative into school. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, how are you finding schools to go to? What exactly does that process look like?
Well, I'm just going to interrupt first because I'm hoping some of our viewers will want to join your team. And that's one way that Mamavate is collaborating with Ask and Tell. Is because we are a nonprofit, we can get volunteers to raise their hands. So if you are hearing Mo's story, and particularly this part about reaching out and giving it something that more kids can be aware of, please consider volunteering with us and doing what Mo is about to describe.
So the schools there's like the ask and the tell, right? So the parent can ask and the child will tell. I went over to the other side so the kids would tell before the parents asked. And that's what the schools were. So I've gone, because of, the pandemic, I wasn't able to go down there for 2 years, but for 3 years, I went down to a school in Tijuana, and it was a school run by the nuns, and there was 1st through 8th grade. And so I did it in Spanish. I went to each of the classrooms and I had the children write a list of what they learned from their moms. It was absolutely stunningly beautiful because in Mexico, mothers are revered in Mexico, and all the children and the moms went to a church, and then they went to they had a celebration, and they did a ceremony where the children read the lists out loud to their mothers of what they'd learned, and there was a lot of tears. And it was something that the mothers didn't expect. And the way the teacher said, it was like leaving a legacy of love for the mothers to have that affirmation in writing. So I did that for 3 years for all the grades. And then I've gone into another school in Mexico. I actually was on vacation and I heard kids outside my hotel. And I love kids. And I found I was right next to the school. So I knocked on the door and the principal answered. And she said, oh, I told her in Spanish, I was able to speak Spanish and the program I had and what I wanted to do. And in Spanish, it's called La Lecciones de la Vida que aprendí de ti. It's the life lessons I've learned from you. And I had the sheets the forms all done in Spanish. So she told me to come back the next day and they had me go. I had 300 kids in that school. I went to every classroom. And this was getting lists for the moms. It was the kids telling the moms. So that seems to be a very fast way to get lots of lists for moms. And the schools absolutely loved it because it was a really concrete loving action they could do. The teachers are always looking for a project for kids that is, fairly simple to do. We did
not too much glue and beads and all the crafty stuff.
Yes. Although some of the kids, they did dress up their lists a little bit, but one of the moms in 2nd grade wrote me this beautiful note, and she said the lesson that her child had learned, and I'm not speaking it directly, but it was just about, she said, you taught me how to be in life and how to be myself in my school, and just to live in my heart. This kid was in second grade and wrote this to her mom.
Wow.
And her mom said, I literally did not know that I had that impact on my child. So it's a two-way street. If we can get lists for moms or moms on Mother's Day, you can ask for your lists.
I love that part that you just said, like, we don't know the impact that we are having on our kids, because every day I feel like failure. Oh, screwed that up. And so I'm sitting here and I'm literally thinking, I need to email my son's teacher and I need to tell her to try this project for Mother's Day. And I'll send her all the information and everything, because I want to know what my son really thinks.
Right. And maybe it is a different dynamic if a teacher is saying, let's do this for your moms, as opposed to the mom saying, I have a question. Will you please tell me?
I have asked my son that before, because, you know, I'm on Pinterest all the time. And sometimes it's like, would you ask your kids how you could be a better mom? And so I sat at breakfast one time with my 9-year-old and I was like, is there anything I could be doing better as your mom? And he's like, I don't know. And he left.
So I think that might be an indication that our kids feel similar to us. Like these some complex emotions. There's a lot of depth about what motherhood entails, what our children are experiencing with us as their moms. And in a lot of times we feel like, let's leave it at surface level. Why do we need a whole day, Mother's Day, to dig in? And that's a good question. Why bother? Why not just leave it at the surface where we aren't digging into the deep emotions? We,
just get her the card, get her the flowers.
Yeah.
Get it
What
over.
do you think?
Say happy Mother's Day.
Have you seen that purpose come out that makes it worth the effort?
Well, yes, I have. And I also had a really beautiful conversation yesterday with a couple of moms about this. And it's about, I don't know where the saying came from. I think it might have been a scriptural saying, but it was ask and you shall receive. And it's just a beautiful tenet to ask and you shall receive. And I feel like as a mom, I would always struggle. I still struggle with my birthday. What do I ask for? And I always say, don't get me anything, and I realized
donate to the school in Uganda instead.
There you go.
Just donate on your behalf.
Yeah, donate something on my behalf, but it's very hard to ask. But I think if we start to model that for our kids, like, it's okay to ask for what I need. And that could look different for every mother on Mother's Day. It could look, I want to go be with my best friend. I want to go to the forest and walk by myself. I want breakfast in bed. It can be whatever that is. But when you ask, when we ask for what we want, what we need, and then the child has a chance to actually provide that for a change. Because let's face it, they're professionals at asking for what they need. Their whole life is to receive. Their whole life is that, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And then we give it to them. But when we flip it and say what we need, and they actually get to be the ones to give the gift of that, it's very meaningful to them. And it actually, I think it's kind of a relief. Now my kids know that they don't have to ever get me anything for Mother's Day. It's a tradition that we do every year in our family, which is fun because the lists evolve over the years. I told my 35-year-old daughter yesterday, I said, what are you going to put on my list this year, that you learn how to use a credit card and open a bottle of wine? I don't know what's it going to be this year, but it's really, I think it takes the pressure off the kids in a way, to have a tradition and to have this, a simple practice. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
I wanted to bring up one of the ones I saw on your website that was an example. It might have been from one of your kids, but it said something like, when she tells you that shaving your legs isn't worth it, you can believe her.
This is the list.
That's the one. There you go.
This is it. I've had this list for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I told her, don't shave your legs. And her sisters insisted on it. They said she was very hairy. And the two big sisters, cornered me in a room and said, you've got to let her shave. I said, I have a hard and fast rule. It's not till, 8th grade, I was really strict. And they're like, this is an emergency. We have to shave her. And so they shaved her, my little body. And then she was so excited. And then 3 weeks later, she had, it was like her legs were like 2 porcupines walking around.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were right.
What would you say is the one item off your girls list that stood out to you the most over the years?
Well, actually, this one is, it's sitting in front of me. And I know we didn't plan this question, but I happen to have it. It's don't look.
I'm so glad.
It says, don't look behind her, ahead, stay in the present day. And, I always tried to teach them, they were so worried about everything. Kids have so much to worry about.
Yeah.
They worry about everything, their friends, their school,
Yeah.
their boyfriends, their grades, everything. And I always try to tell them, let's just be in this day, in this day, there's not an F on your report card. There's no report card, and there's no, in this day, we're all okay. And we'll just take it one moment at a time. So yeah, I think that was pretty meaningful to me. When I started to realize those things were sinking in, it was pretty cool. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something about the insecurity. For the Ask and Tell project, before I actually launched it and made it like a, more formal, I interviewed many, many parents, and I asked them all, a set of 10 questions, like, what is your biggest fear? 100% of them were that I'm going to do something that's going to mess them up, or I'm going to give them advice or direction that's going to send them in the wrong way, or I'm going to tee them up to think they can do anything and then they can't. And the insecurity was so moving to me because I had experienced it for so long myself. But it also, and in this day and age, it's even ratcheted up, I think. The parents were, I'm not saying this lightly, they were taking prescription drugs like tranquilizers to calm themselves down. They were over drinking, at night to just like calm their nerves, and taking sleeping pills so they could sleep. There was so much anxiety. And I truly believe that a lot of them were parenting in the dark without the communication that they deserved, especially when it got to tweens and teens. And these lists are like, it's like a prescription, it's like, here, take this medicine, you just need this. You just need communication from your kid. That's the medicine you need. You don't need the other medicine. So.
I feel like the word that's coming to mind right now when you're talking about that insecurity here in a few minutes ago is worthy. That's the word that keeps sticking in my mind. Do we feel worthy of being celebrated on Mother's Day or every other day? Do we feel worthy of these lists? And I think that's what we need to work on. That's what I need to work on. I'm not going to tell anybody that they need to work on that. I need to work on that.
Something else that's helped me over the years with the insecurities that I've felt is really to realize that motherhood is a universal thing, as so is this insecurity. And if I can do something to help another mother feel less insecure, kind of like taking the spotlight off myself and being willing to just go. I had a friend who miscarried a set of twins just days before Mother's Day. And I just decided to go sit with her and cry with her on that Mother's Day, because I was just so aware of how poignant her feelings were at not getting to be a mother. It was her first pregnancy. And that was so cathartic to realize it's not really all about me. There are other mothers with other pains. If I can lighten that load for them. I grew up the child of a single mom, and unfortunately we didn't realize that there was such a thing as Mother's Day for a really long time, or that we as kids were supposed to do something for her, right? So I've become very sensitive to other single mothers whose kids might not be aware that there's such a thing as Mother's Day, and I make sure those kids know, okay, tomorrow's the day, or whatever, sometimes further in advance than just tomorrow, but take your mom this rose or whatever, and kind of empower those kids to help their mom acknowledge that they notice her,
And she is worthy.
yes, exactly.
Both beautiful things to say. And worthiness is just, I think it's just in the DNA of a mother. I mean, how can you could feel unworthy 100 times a day, but I think there's something about the vulnerability of being a mom. And for me, it's like, I messed up so many times and I try to like act like it didn't happen. And then finally I kind of clued into the fact that I could just go and tuck them in bed and say, will you forgive me for today? Will you forgive me? I didn't say I'm sorry. I didn't say I'm sorry. I said, will you forgive me? It's a different, I did this with my kids, teaching them to ask that, not say they're sorry, because sometimes people aren't sorry, but it also takes the power away from the person who was grumpy too. I'm sidetracking on siblings for a minute, but if I had them say, will you forgive me? Then the other person who got, bummed out would say, maybe I will, and maybe I won't, come back in an hour and I'll let you know. And the power stayed within the victim, So,
yeah. You're giving them that choice. Like, I feel like you're giving them a choice to acknowledge their own feelings about it too.
Yes.
And that just strengthens your bond together.
Yes.
Instead of saying, say you're sorry for what you did.
Yeah. And the person's not sorry, or the kid's not sorry, or the mom's not sorry, or the dad's not sorry.
My 5-year-old is not sorry.
No, my kid's like, I'm not sorry. What do I have to say it for? So I just said, well, go ask and say, well, let it go. But I would ask my kids that. I'd say, it helped me a lot, I think, to just say, hey, it wasn't my best mom day. I didn't do very well today. Like I yelled or I got upset. Will you forgive me? And 100% of the time the kids would, that's how they are. They just put their arms around you and melt you and say, of course, mom, So I think that also opened up. I was always looking for streams of ways to keep the line of communication open with my kids, because it gets blocked up naturally. And then when they start closing the door, when they're, in their tweens or teens and the door shut, I would panic because they were like, oh my gosh, I've lost them. And I couldn't get a list. I learned to, my other thing I made up was I'd knock on the door and they'd say, what? And I'd say, just give me the topic. Is it school, friends, or boyfriends? And then they would say, it's school. And I'd say, okay, that's all I need to know. I'm here if you need me. And I'd walk away and I could figure out what it was from there. Anything I could do to keep that line open. Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to share so much, both about the Ask and Tell, your international adventures with Tijuana and Uganda, and as well as these little tidbits coming out as we continue having that conversation. Sadly, we are out of time, but Mo, please take this last minute to repeat your website and what moms can do to apply what they learned today.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So the practice is called Ask and Tell, and the website is askandtell.org. You can learn a little bit there about why it helps to ask based on the research that I've put together with other parents. And then there's a little button you can hit that says start your list. And in there, if you want to, you can download a template. There's no cost to it. I put templates in there for moms, dads, for grandmothers, grandfathers, and in different languages. If any of your guests speak different languages, I have things in there in Italian and French and Spanish as well. And and you can download a list or just look at it as an inspiration, and then just ask the kids to just get a list, and they come out looking like this. They're artistic. Sometimes they're just scratched on an index card. It doesn't matter. I have all kinds of them in my house. But and if you want me to come to be with your school, I can come to school and talk to the kids. I've also done after school programs as well. It used that as a practice and ask after school program. So I think I have over 1,000 lists right now. My goal is 1 million. So
you gotta start right. Do it. Especially if we get volunteers to be kind of your satellites to go and do.
That'd be amazing. And I want to I also want to acknowledge the dads, because I really think the dads that I've gotten lists for are so appreciative. I know Father's Day is around the corner right after Mother's Day, so I always want to honor the dads too. So
That's great. I love it. So yeah, just a reminder, we are looking for those volunteers. Take the idea to local. Mo herself will train you, and you can present this as a form of gratitude to both parents and teachers. Contact our website if you'd like to spread this concept at your local level.
Thank you so much. Something you needed out of today's conversation. We would love to hear if your kids end up making our ask and tell list for you for Mother's Day, and just reach out to us through Facebook at Mom of 8 and Instagram at Mom of 8 Moms. And we also for our weekly Smile newsletter, which follows the same themes of the Momversations every week. You can sign up to receive that on our website at momof8.org.
Thank you to our viewers. Thank you especially to Mo for giving us a new face.
it was a real pleasure. Happy Mother's Day to both of you.
Oh, and
so
to
much.
you too. We
Thanks.
also like to thank our behind the scenes friends at Win Win Women who make this all possible to care, connect, and collaborate in this unique way.
Yeah, we are going to stop our live recording and switch over to our live interaction with our viewers. If you've watched this on Roku as a recording, be sure to catch our live show every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time through the Win Win Women Network. I'm saying that every week. So you can participate in the second half hour and talk directly to me and Reagan. And if you text reminder, please show live text at Mom of 8 to 81010.
We want to include you in our Mom of 8 community or mom community. So please stick around and join the Momversation.
Yeah.